I want to start today with a number that it actually made me stop scrolling and just put my phone down. 42%.
That's a massive number.
It really is. That's the increase in attention deficit disorder diagnoses in just the last 10 years.
The decade, yeah.
42%. And when you see a statistic like that, the immediate reaction, and I'm guilty of this too, is it's a mix of alarm and confusion. You think, wow, something is fundamentally wrong here.
It's the standard narrative, isn't it? We see a spike like that, and we just assume biology is breaking down.
Right.
Assume it's a defect.
Exactly. We start looking for the culprit. Is
Yeah.
it chemicals in the water? Is it the screen time frying their neural pathways? Is it just bad parenting?
Mm-hmm.
But today, we're doing a deep dive into a piece of writing that flips that narrative completely on its head. We're looking at an article by Ryan Collison called "Your Kids Aren't Distracted, They're Running a Higher Frame Rate." And I have to say, this theory, it changes everything. It changes the way you look at a teenager staring at a phone.
It really does. It moves the conversation from pathology.
Yeah.
From looking for a disease to adaptation.
Adaptation.
The core argument here is just fascinating. It's like, what if the kids are fine? What if their brains are doing exactly what they should be doing to survive, but the environment has changed so radically that their rational reaction just looks like a disorder to us?
That's the part that really stuck with me. The idea that we might be pathologizing a survival skill. So if you've ever felt that frustration, trying to get a younger person to focus on one thing at a time, or if you've worried about your own attention span, you really need to hear this. We're going to unpack this frame rate theory.
And just to set the stage, our mission here isn't to say ADHD doesn't exist or that the struggles people face aren't real. Not at all.
Of course not.
But we're going to look at the sources and ask a different question. Are we measuring the wrong thing?
So let's get into this core concept, frame rate. Now, I'm a bit of a tech geek, so I loved this analogy right away. But for everyone listening, let's break down what Collison means when he talks about frame rate. It's not really just about video games, is it?
No, but the metaphor comes directly from there. In the world of video processing, frame rate, or FPS, is how many still images a computer flashes on the screen every second.
To create the illusion of motion.
Exactly.
Right. So back in the day, I'm dating myself here, standard video games ran at about 30 frames per second. That was the standard for TV, for consoles, for a long, long time.
And it looked fine to us. It was smooth enough. But, technology accelerated. We moved to 60 FPs. And now, if you talk to competitive gamers, kids playing Valorant or Overwatch,
Forget it.
they're demanding 144 frames per second or even higher. They need that massive flow of visual information to react instantly.
Okay, so they process visual data faster, but how does that translate to attention?
Well, the source material describes this very specific sensation that I think unlocks the whole theory. If you take a gamer who is used to playing at 144 frames per second, hyper smooth, instant reaction, and you force them to play a game running at 30 frames per second, what happens?
It feels broken. It feels laggy. I've actually experienced this. You move your mouse and the screen takes just a split second to catch up. It feels sluggish, totally unresponsive.
Exactly. It feels unplayable because your brain is ready for the next piece of information, but the screen hasn't updated yet.
Right.
Collison argues this is exactly what is happening in the classroom. You have a child whose brain has adapted to a high information throughput environment.
High frame rate life.
A high frame rate life, yes.
Yeah.
Then they walk into a lecture hall or a classroom that was, designed for the attention spans of 1985.
Which is running at a solid 30 FPS.
At best. And the kid sits there and they feel that lag. They aren't broken, they are buffering. They're waiting for the next packet of information and it's just not coming fast enough.
That is such a powerful reframe because usually when a kid is fidgeting or looking around the room during a lecture, we say, he can't pay attention. But this theory suggests, no, he is paying attention, but he processed your sentence in the first 2 seconds, and now he has 10 seconds of dead air to fill before you get to the next point.
It's an inability to slow down. That's a crucial distinction. We treat it as a deficit of processing power, but it might actually be an excess of processing speed relative to the environment.
A mismatch.
The source puts it perfectly. The question isn't, why can't they pay attention? The question is, attention at what frame rate, in what environment, to what ends?
I see. So to really drive this home, this difference in environment, the article proposes a thought experiment that I thought was hilarious, but also kind of terrifying. The 1975 adult.
This is a great visualization.
Okay, so picture this. You take a perfectly neurotypical, functional adult from the year 1975, Someone who is considered totally normal by the standards of their time. They have a job, they read the newspaper, they can sit through a long meeting.
They are the gold standard of focus.
Right. Now, you drop them directly into the life of a modern teenager in 2024. You just plop them into the bedroom.
What happens to them?
Well, suddenly they've got notifications pinging from 4 different apps. There's a group chat scrolling constantly on one screen. There's an algorithmic feed on TikTok or Instagram that is literally designed by the smartest engineers on Earth to hack their dopamine receptors.
Oh, for sure. And social dynamics playing out across Discord and Snapchat at the same time.
And the question the source asks is, how long until that 1975 adult looks distracted?
They wouldn't last an hour.
Not a chance. They look completely disordered. They'd probably be curled up in a ball or, bouncing off the walls, trying to keep up with the sensory overload.
Exactly. They would likely exhibit symptoms of anxiety, irritability, and a total inability to focus on any single thing because the noise level is just too high for their filter.
So if you put a normal 1975 brain into an impossible 2024 environment, it looks dysfunctional.
Yep.
But these kids, they live there. This is their native terrain.
The article lists the input channels, just to compare them. And it's staggering when you see it written down. I mean, think about your parents' childhood. What did they have to regulate?
It was so limited. You had the physical world right in front of you. You had face-to-face conversations. And maybe, if you were lucky, a TV show or a book.
That's 3 channels.
3 channels, that's it.
Manageable. Now, look at the list for modern kid. Physical environment, sure. But then, text conversations with multiple threads active at once. Social media feeds across multiple platforms. App notifications, group chats, email, streaming content running in the background, gaming environments, video calls.
It's a bandwidth explosion.
It is. And the source uses a driving analogy here that I think fits perfectly.
Oh, this was a good one.
Asking why a modern kid doesn't navigate attention the way a parent did is like asking why someone who learned to drive on a chaotic 6-lane superhighway doesn't drive the same way as someone who learned on an empty country road.
That makes so much sense. If you drive like you're on a country road when you're on the I-95 during rush hour, you're going to crash.
Right.
You have to check your mirrors more. You have to scan rapidly.
And that rapid scanning, checking the mirror, checking the blind spot, watching the car ahead, that is what we often label as distractibility in a classroom.
But on the highway, it's not distraction.
It's defensive driving.
Okay, let's unpack that because this is where we get into the really controversial stuff, the actual diagnosis. The source goes through the DSM criteria for ADHD, that's the diagnostic manual used by psychiatrists, and reframes each symptom.
This is critical. The argument here is that dysfunction is contextual. A trait is only a problem if it clashes with the environment. So let's look at the first one. Difficulty sustaining attention on tasks.
Which is the classic complaint, right? He can't focus on his homework. She just stares out the window.
But the source points out the contradiction we all see. That same kid who supposedly can't sustain attention can hyper-focus on a video game for 6 hours straight.
Oh, totally. I've seen this. If the task matches their frame rate, like a fast-paced game, the attention isn't just there, it's intense, it's locked in.
Right. So the deficit isn't in the capacity for attention, it's a mismatch in stimulation. It's only when the task is low stimulation like a worksheet that the deficit appears.
Okay, but what about easily distracted by extraneous stimuli? I mean, that sounds objectively bad. You don't want to be the person who gets derailed by every shiny object.
Well, just flip the context. In a library, yes, that's bad. But in an information-rich, dangerous, or fast-moving environment, like that 6-lane highway,
you need to notice things.
Being able to notice new inputs quickly is not a defect. It's a survival skill. The source calls this adaptive noticing.
Adaptive noticing. So what looks like me getting distracted is actually me scanning my environment for relevant data because I'm trained to expect data to come from everywhere, all the time.
Precisely. If you are in a chaotic environment, you should be scanning. If you lock your focus on one thing for too long, you might miss a crucial update, a social cue, or even a threat.
Let's look at another one. Disorganized. The messy backpacks, lost papers, forgetting where things are.
The rebuttal here suggests this is often a clash between internal systems and external structures. The kid might have a very elaborate digital filing system or a way of tracking things in their head like a search engine. They don't file things. They search for them when needed.
But the school requires a linear, physical binder system.
Right. So it's not that they have no order. It's that their order is based on search, and the school's order is based on filing. It's a system clash.
And the last one that really hit home for me, Avoids tasks requiring sustained mental effort.
This is the one that gets labeled as laziness.
All the time.
But the source frames it as efficiency. If you are used to high-speed information retrieval, Google, ChatGPT, wikis, spending hours on a task that feels rote or pointless, feels like an irrational waste of energy? It's resource conservation. Why spend the energy if the ROI isn't there?
That makes a kind of brutal sense. The key insight Collison seems to be making is that the criteria for ADHD were calibrated for a world with slow information flow.
And clear hierarchies.
The world changed, but the checklist didn't.
That's the crux of it.
However, and I feel like we have to pivot here because otherwise we're just saying, everything is fine, let the kids scroll. And I know there are listeners thinking, no, wait, my kid actually can't function. And the source material addresses this. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's not. And this is the most important nuance in the whole article. We have to talk about the difference between a high frame rate and external capture.
Right. So if the frame rate theory explains why they're fast, this part explains why they might be miserable or unable to stop.
Think about previous generations again. If you were bored in 1985, it's raining. Nothing is on TV. What did you do?
You sat there, you stared at a wall, maybe you annoyed your sibling.
Right.
Eventually, you had to invent a game or pick up a book. You had to make something happen.
Exactly. You had to generate your own stimulation. That builds a muscle called internal attention regulation. You were responsible for your own entertainment.
And today?
Today, attention is externally captured. The environment is so aggressive, so optimized by algorithms, that a child rarely has to generate their own engagement.
It's served to them.
It is served to them on a platter, constantly. This is where the tech aspect really comes in. It's not just that there's a lot to look at. It's that the things to look at are designed to never let you go.
Yes, the variable rewards, the infinite scroll.
Correct. So the child's attention is captured by an external force.
So the muscle for internal regulation, the ability to say, I am bored, I will now do something else, it just atrophies.
Yes. Or it never gets built in the first place. And the source argues this isn't a brain deficit. It's not that their brains can't regulate. It's a training gap. They just haven't had to practice boredom tolerance.
That distinction between a deficit and a training gap is huge. A deficit sounds permanent. A training gap sounds like something we can work on.
It is fixable, but the consequences of that gap are real. The article lists them. Difficulty self-starting tasks without a prompt.
If the app doesn't ping you, you don't move.
A dependence on stimulation, meaning silence, feels unbearable. And lower boredom tolerance.
I think we all feel that a little bit. The idea of just sitting in a waiting room without pulling out a phone, it feels painful now.
That is the external capture at work. For a teenager who has never known anything else, that silence isn't just boring. It feels like a void. It produces anxiety.
So the takeaway from this section isn't that we need to medicate the fast processing away, necessarily.
No.
It's that we need to recognize that slow skills like boredom tolerance and self-starting need deliberate development.
Exactly. The environment used to teach them automatically. Now, it doesn't. So we have to treat being bored or reading a long book like we treat learning to play the piano. It's a skill that requires lessons and practice.
I like that. It's proactive. Now, I want to talk about the flip side, though, because we've talked about the struggle, but the source also highlights that these kids have, well, superpowers. We call them distracted, but they are doing things my brain literally cannot do.
The hidden skills. This is the part that often gets ignored in school meetings. These kids possess what the author calls high frame rate adaptations.
Like rapid context switching.
Yes. The ability to shift focus between 3 or 4 different streams of information instantly without losing the thread.
Parallel processing.
Parallel processing. Tracking social dynamics across multiple platforms simultaneously.
The article mentions the irony of professors who, struggle to use a PDF projector or unmute themselves on Zoom, lecturing these kids about focus.
It is ironic. A distractible kid can often navigate a complex information environment, say, a raid in a video game, while chatting on Discord and checking a wiki, that would completely overwhelm the professor who is lecturing them.
We're testing them on their ability to walk slowly while they are training to fly a jet.
Exactly.
And that leads us to the dark side of this whole conversation. The label, the source, talks about the self-fulfilling diagnosis.
This is a heavy point. When you give a child a label like ADHD, you give them an identity framework. You give them a story that says, I have a problem. The problem is inside me.
And for some kids, that's a relief, right? Oh, there's a name for why this is so hard.
It can be very liberating. It explains the struggle,
Mm.
but it can also be limiting. It can lower expectations. Oh, I can't do that. I have ADHD.
Mm.
It frames the issue as a biological bug rather than an interaction with the environment.
It locates the problem inside the child rather than between the child and the world.
Correct. And that could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you have a deficit of attention, you might stop trying to build those muscles of regulation we talked about.
Hmm.
You assume you just can't.
It becomes a reason to stop trying to close that training gap.
Precisely.
Mm.
And that is dangerous.
So as we wrap this up, let's bring it back to the so what. What do we do with this? We have the frame rate theory. We know the environment is a 6-lane highway. We know the skills are different. What is the goal here?
The final reframe is this. High frame rate is an adaptation, not a disorder. It has costs, less deep focus, less boredom tolerance, and it has benefits, high throughput, rapid switching.
So the goal isn't to fix the kid.
The goal is range. We want to help them add the slow skills to their repertoire without pathologizing the fast skills they already have. We want them to be able to drive on the country road and the highway.
I love that. It's not about deleting the ability to process fast. It's about regaining the ability to go slow when you need to. It's about having gears.
Exactly. You want to be able to downshift.
The source ends with a thought that I think is going to stick with me for a long time. It's a riff on that old Einstein quote.
We are currently measuring fish by how well they climb trees.
And in this case, the fish are these high-speed processors, and the trees are our slow, linear 1985 institutions.
So the question is, how do we help children develop the full range of attention capacities, including the slow, sustained kind, without making them feel like their native, fast processing state is a disease?
That is the question. And frankly, I think it's a question for us adults too. Maybe we could all use a little practice slowing down our own frame rates every once in a while.
I think we definitely could.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. It's certainly given me a lot to think about regarding how I view attention, distractions, and this digital world we're all swimming in.
It's a brave new world. We just have to learn how to navigate it.
Exactly. We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.